What's going on, everybody? Kalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G and the Cricket Dream 5G. So let's get started. So with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we're getting a 6.5-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 405, and an aspect ratio of 20:9. With the Cricket Dream 5G, we're getting a 6.82-inch LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 263, and an aspect ratio of 20.5:9. So there are definitely quite a few differences here. As far as the size and dimensions go, I would say the Cricket Dream 5G actually does have a little bit of an advantage. It's clearly much larger, which is usually a good thing for content consumption. And it also has a taller and more narrow form factor. And that's going to give you a better experience when you're streaming videos in landscape mode. And if you're reading, you'll be able to fit more on the screen without having to scroll as much. But on the other hand, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G has a much higher quality display. The 1080p resolution definitely makes a difference. The image is much sharper on the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G than it is on the Cricket Dream 5G. There's no question about that. And in addition to this, the display of the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G being a Super AMOLED display versus a regular LCD display is much brighter and the viewing angles are a lot better. So in general, the image is just going to be so much higher quality on the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G than it will be on the Cricket Dream 5G. In addition to that, the 120Hz refresh rate is going to give the A53 5G a little bit faster and smoother movement on the screen. And that's going to be better for content consumption, like videos, playing games, that sort of thing. And then when you're just navigating through the phone in general, it's going to feel a little bit more premium compared to the more standard 60Hz refresh rate we get with the Cricket Dream 5G. Now for storage, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and the Cricket Dream 5G is getting 64GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion as well. So there's definitely quite a difference here. Although the 64GB we're getting with the Cricket Dream 5G is really not that bad, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G still has double the amount of storage, and in this day and age, having more storage than less is always a good thing, because with the system, apps, and just data in general getting larger and larger, and as such taking up a lot more space, it's just a good idea to have extra storage. And although both of these phones do have microSD card expansion, having more internal storage on the phone itself is a little bit more convenient and just nicer overall. So in terms of storage, while the Cricket Dream 5G is really not bad, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is clearly much better, and if that wasn't enough, there's also another variant of this phone that has 256GB as well. So if you're really a power user, you could always get that variant, whereas the Cricket Dream 5G only has this one amount of storage, and again, it is much lower. Now there's no wireless charging with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, but surprisingly, the Cricket Dream 5G does have wireless charging and it works really well. I believe it supports up to 10-watt wireless charging. And I will say from experience, because I have had this phone for quite a while now, the wireless charging does work really well, and it's definitely a nice feature to have. It's one of those things where if you don't have it, you're probably never going to think about it. But once you do have it, you'll probably get used to it pretty quickly and really start to appreciate having the feature. And at the same time, it is really too bad the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G doesn't have wireless charging, because seeing that this phone is really almost flagship level in terms of features and performance, I was kind of hoping they'd put wireless charging on it too. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Now for security features, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G has both a fingerprint scanner and face unlock, so it's nice to see that we're getting two options here to unlock it. Now the fingerprint scanner is located right here on the display, works really well, and feels really premium too. I really like in-display fingerprint scanners just because of how nice they look, and since this one is so fast and responsive, there are no issues here. It definitely adds a real nice touch. So let's try that one more time. There we go. So again, real fast and responsive, no issues here. And don't forget, there is face unlock on this phone as well. Now there's no face unlock with the Cricket Dream 5G, but there is a fingerprint scanner right here on the back. More of a classic spot. It doesn't really look or feel that premium, but it definitely works really well. Let's try that one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, definitely really fast and responsive. So as far as the security features go, both of these phones do have really good fingerprint scanners. They work really well. It just comes down to the placement, because the fingerprint scanner on the Cricket Dream 5G is definitely practical. But again, I really do prefer the in-display fingerprint scanner just because it looks so much nicer and a lot more premium. Now for the camera setups of these phones, with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we got a hole punch design for the front-facing camera, looks real nice and clean. And this camera is 32 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 64 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 5 megapixel macro camera, and a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera. And for video with this phone, we got a max quality of 4K at 30 frames per second in both the rear and front cameras, so definitely real nice. Unfortunately, it's not 60 frames per second, and although in the grand scheme of things, that's a really minor detail, if you're trying to shoot some seriously high quality videos, maybe you want to do some cool slow motion or something like that, it is nice to have the option to shoot in a higher frame rate if you really want to. But again, at least we are getting 4K in both the rear and front cameras, so that's definitely a nice thing. Now with the Cricket Dream 5G, we got a water drop notch here for the front facing camera, and this camera is 13 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup as well, with a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. For video, this phone maxes out at 1080p in both the rear and front cameras, so really basic, and as far as video quality goes, I definitely will say, the videos you're going to shoot on this phone are really not going to be anything special. If you want to do anything high quality that you're actually going to keep or use for something, then I would say the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is going to be the way to go, because the Cricket Dream 5G is really only going to be good for something like Snapchat, or maybe sending a video to a friend or family, something like that. Nothing where you're actually going to be using the video for something. Now as far as overall features go, these phones have pretty much everything, basically the same kind of stuff. Ultra wide cameras, macro cameras, all that. But I will say, just like with the videos, if you're taking photos that you're actually going to be using for something, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is going to be much better. The photos are really high quality on this phone and really look almost flagship level. Whereas with the Cricket Dream 5G, the pictures aren't really bad per se, and you might be able to get a few good ones for social media here and there. But in comparison, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is really on a whole nother level. In camera wise, it's pretty much better in every way. Now internally, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is getting 6GB of RAM with the Samsung Exynos 1280 processor. The Cricket Dream 5G is getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor. So both of these phones have really good processors, and of course, as their names suggest, 5G connectivity. And in this day and age, although 4G is probably not going to be going away anytime soon, getting a 5G phone is really a good idea, because after all, 5G is the future. So if you want the latest and best technology, a 5G phone is really the way to go. Now that being said, I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both of these phones, and with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we got a single core score of 742 and a multi-core score of 1910. With the Cricket Dream 5G, we got a single core score of 545 and a multi-core score of 1666. So overall, both of these phones are really powerful, and they're going to be able to handle pretty much anything you throw at them. Now that being said though, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is clearly the faster of the two. So if you're doing higher end activities like mobile gaming and stuff like that, or you're just going to be on your phone all the time, then you're definitely going to notice the difference in performance. That being said, while this is a pretty sizable difference, I don't think there's a whole lot the Cricket Dream 5G just straight up can't do that the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G can. I just think the performance with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is going to be much better, and you're really going to notice it the most when you're using your phone all the time. But that being said, in context, this is actually really impressive with the Cricket Dream 5G, because this phone is a super entry-level phone as far as price goes, and seeing that it competes so closely with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, which is basically almost flagship level, is actually really impressive. So yeah, of course, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is much more powerful, but at the same time, in terms of the actual price range, for a budget phone like the Cricket Dream 5G, this is definitely not something you're going to see every day. Now for the battery, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G has a 5000 mAh battery, and the Cricket Dream 5G has a 4750 mAh battery, so pretty close. Technically, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G does have a little bit larger of a battery, but it's really not by that much. And plus, since the Cricket Dream 5G has just a basic LCD display and doesn't really consume a whole lot of power, it's probably going to be about even. But regardless, both of these phones have really good batteries that are not only going to last you throughout the day, but they're also going to be great in terms of longevity. In addition to this, both of these phones do have NFC, so if you want to use something like Google Pay or pretty much any other contactless mobile payment service, like for example, I got Amex Pay and it works perfectly fine, you can do that with either of these phones. But in conclusion, which of these devices is better? Well, if we're talking about just head-to-head overall specs and features, then of course by far the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is going to be the better device, with a much higher quality display, double the storage, a much more powerful camera that can take much higher quality photos, the ability to shoot 4K videos, a more powerful processor, and a slightly larger battery. This phone is definitely just on a whole different level from the Cricket Dream 5G, but that being said though, when it comes to what kind of value you're actually getting for your money, that's where things are a little different. On one hand, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G does actually provide a lot of value for the money, especially when compared to higher end phones like the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE for example, or the new iPhone SE. This phone, despite being a mid-range phone, really does hold its own against those entry-level flagship phones, but at the same time, with the Cricket Dream 5G, this phone on the other hand is one where, depending on the deals and promotions going on at the time, you might even be able to get for free. This phone is really meant to compete with more entry-level phones, but it still does definitely hold its own against the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Now, is it better in any way? No, I don't think so, except for the fact that it does have wireless charging, and the screen is much larger and it has a better form factor. Besides those things, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is just better in every way. Oh, except for the headphone jack. I almost completely forgot about that. There is a headphone jack on the Cricket Dream 5G, and there's none on the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Ever since I got this phone, I keep forgetting it doesn't have a headphone jack. I personally don't use wired headphones, so it doesn't really affect me, but I know a lot of people out there do use those headphones. So unfortunately, if you do have wired headphones, you can't use them with this phone. But anyway, besides those little advantages, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is clearly a much better device. But again, at the same time, for a really entry-level phone, seeing that this phone does come so close to the A53 5G in several areas, like for example, it does have pretty similar camera features, the processing power isn't really that far off, the battery is almost as large, and it also does have NFC. The Cricket Dream 5G, despite obviously not being nearly as good as the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, does still have quite a bit to offer, especially if you're looking for a more basic phone to do more normal activities with. Now once again, if you want to learn more about either of these phones, be sure to check out my full reviews and tips and tricks videos for them on the channel. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. But as always, I will see you in the next video.